Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to today's forum. I know we have many people who are also attending virtually, including former and current trustees, faculty, staff, and students. I appreciate the fact that all of you took your time to be here today. Today's forum is being recorded, and a link has been sent campus-wide, so interested individuals can watch now during the event or later when viewing time is more convenient. The purpose of today's forum is to be transparent and communicate information about the facilities and bonding proposal that will be brought to the NMU Board of Trustees on Thursday, October 28th at a special meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. The administration requested that the NMU Board of Trustees add an October meeting to its schedule because the financial audit required by the state was not completed in time to be approved at the September Board of Trustees meeting, and it requires Board of Trustees approval before we can send it to the state. Vice President Gavin Leach announced the need for this meeting at that September Board of Trustees Finance Committee meeting. In addition to the financial audit, there are two other agenda items for Thursday's board meeting. The finalized University General Fund budget for this year is another agenda item, as is a bonding proposal, which we'll be discussing today. Today's forum will focus on the proposed facilities projects and explain the funding plan. Before I turn things over to Gavin, I'm also asking Dave Nyberg of the NMU Foundation to provide an update on the foundation's involvement with the old hospital property and to respond to questions that have been received. Dave?
Thank you, Dr. Schuling, and thank you to the campus community and for the opportunity to be here with you all today to talk about the NMU Foundation's agreement with UP Health System Marquette. It's great to be with you all here this afternoon. As an initial and unrelated matter, I did want to acknowledge some of the comments that I've read online relating to the NMU Board of Trustees authorization for a loan to the NMU Foundation last December. Very simply, the purpose of that action was responsive to a completely separate opportunity that was presented to the NMU Foundation and contemplated significant philanthropic support to benefit NMU. Unfortunately, that opportunity did not materialize or go forward, and the short-term bridging note has since been paid in full earlier this year. Now back to the Foundation's agreement with UP Health System Marquette. The Foundation initiated a conversation with hospital leadership about 18 months ago in January of 2019, and we're now very pleased to be facilitating a prescribed process that's designed to catalyze resources and build additional partnerships that will optimize the former hospital property site adjacent to campus. The very first step in that process, as contemplated by our agreement, is a due diligence period that will run through the end of February of next year. We're working with a team of experienced professionals who are working as consultants to the NMU Foundation to develop an understanding of the possibilities before us. This work includes environmental due diligence, as well as the feasibility and cost of demolishing the entire complex, and the financial and practical feasibility of redeveloping the property in a way that will overall benefit the Marquette community, its citizens, and Northern Michigan University. Last week, we took the first step in conducting the environmental due diligence when the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority approved our application for investment in supporting brownfield-eligible activities, such as a Phase 1 environmental site assessment, a limited Phase 2 ESA, and a hazardous materials survey. And I want to take this time to express our appreciation to the Marquette Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for finding merit in our application and supporting investment in this important work, which, by the way, will still be in the public domain even if this does not go forward. The NMU Foundation has since engaged Tri-Media Environmental and Engineering Services, which is a Marquette-based company, to conduct this work, and that work, I'm happy to report, is being conducted as we speak. The Veridia Group has also agreed to provide consulting services for all pre-construction due diligence activities on a pro bono basis. Given their past experience, investment, and extensive knowledge of this site, it gives our team an important head start during the evaluation and due diligence period. At the conclusion of the due diligence period or evaluation period, if the results show that a development plan is both financially and practically feasible, the NMU Foundation will take possession of the property and solicit a request for qualifications for master developers based on a variety of factors, including demonstrated success in master development projects, the ability to obtain financing, and a track record of positive engagement in communities where the developer operates. The NMU Foundation would then enter into a private development partnership with a limited role as an equity investor in the project for the purpose of advancing mutually beneficial outcomes for the city, community, and Northern Michigan University. A very important point, this would be a private development that may complement the NMU campus master plan, but it will not be owned by the NMU Foundation or the university. It's also very important to share that this work is being executed without the use of donor funds. In closing, I would like to remind the campus community that the mission of the NMU Foundation is to establish and foster relationships to generate resources that benefit the strategic goals of Northern Michigan University. The NMU Foundation's agreement with UP Health System Marquette is a proactive endeavor that is designed to catalyze resources and additional partnerships over time that will support NMU's mission and enhance the quality of life of the entire campus community. Finally, I would like to mention that Brad Canale, CEO of the NMU Foundation, sends his regrets for not being able to join us this afternoon. Brad is on a work-related trip out of town, and that was planned long before this forum was scheduled. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
I got one here for you, Dave. So you started planning this around January 2019, is that right? That's what you said?
We had an initial conversation with hospital leadership in January of 2019, and when we started to ideate how can we work together to do something with the property in a way that benefits Northern Michigan University.
And when did Viridia pull back on their claim to that site?
I actually do not recall, or I'm not aware.
No, not aware. We should look that up. I think it's around that same time. So you got Viridia doing pro bono work right now as a consulting planner.
Yep.
Does that mean they're ineligible from being your master developer when you put out that call?
What I would like to say is that we've asked Viridia to provide pro bono consulting services on the pre-construction due diligence because NMU Foundation is not a developer. We don't have the expertise in that type of work. And recognizing that Viridia did do an enormous amount of work on the site before, we asked them if they would consider providing those services to us. The RFP or RFQ, when that goes out, will be eligible to any master developer.
So we've got Viridia, who's probably going to submit and will probably be accepted, who pulled back on a deal because it was too risky for them. We've got the NMU Foundation moving forward, and you just told us you're not even going to own it. You're just putting up the capital for Viridia, and you're not risking donor dollars, but you're risking foundation dollars, which is supposed to benefit everyone here, but you're putting it up to risk for someone else to benefit. Is that correct? That's what I'm hearing. I think that's what we're all
As I
hearing.
mentioned, donor...
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question, Dr. Canfield. I just want to clarify that what I said before is that there are no donor monies being spent on this project.
Is it just donor money that gets distributed to students for scholarships? Is it only donor money, or does other funds reach other people? Or is this just the play money that you have to do these kinds of investments?
I'm not allowed to speak to the terms of our agreement because it's confidential, but I will repeat that there are no donor funds being spent on this project. The donor funds growth money can be spent. There are no donor funds or endowment funds being spent on this project. If that's clarification for you. Yep. Great question. Great question. That's a terrific question. And while it's impossible to get into the construction planning at this time because we're simply, quite frankly, part of my biggest worry about this process is that we're setting too high of expectations that something will absolutely happen. That's not necessarily the case. We're conducting pre-construction due diligence to evaluate and have a better understanding of what needs to happen at that site in order to redevelop it. I will say that the Enemy Foundation's interest in this is to make sure that that project does not continue to deteriorate over time in a way that diminishes opportunities at NMU. What I will say is that any type of development that the NMU Foundation will support and will include as criteria and as part of our process will 100% aim to benefit the mission of NMU, including students. The development could include much-needed housing for the Marquette and NMU campus community. It could include community green space. It could include other arts and cultural amenities that we're early on in the process of trying to understand what that development would look like. But I will tell you, absolutely, anything that we do with this project will seek to benefit the entire campus community, including students. Thank you for the question.
To give a date, Veridia pulled out August 1st, at least according to the Mining Journal, who reported it then. So what I just heard, you're going to knock it, you're going to knock the building down. Yes? No.
There's been no determination about that because we need to understand what it will cost to demolish this site and what are the environmental condition of the overall site. So like I said, we'll have a better understanding, hopefully by March of next year, of what the possibilities might be for redevelopment.
And nobody really knows what's being built. Nobody knows anything about what's being built.
The planning process for a redevelopment, it's too early on in the process to understand that because we currently don't know whether or not portions of the site can be demolished, how much that's going to cost, and we also don't know what the environmental condition is on the entire complex. It's a large complex. Until we understand the complexities of all of those issues, significant planning and design can't commence.
So could we get a few promises from you? One, the money being spent from the foundation on this project will have no effect whatsoever on student scholarships or any effect whatsoever because that money is different than this money.
Yes.
That's only donor money that goes to scholarships and stuff.
No donor money
Right, but what money is going to this?
I cannot speak to the terms of our
What
agreement.
money is going, I mean, just speak, answer, right? Also, please wear a mask because you're inside and those are the rules, but, it's just the rules, man. We've been dealing with this for like 2 years, so. My other question would be, like, you can't honestly say you couldn't answer a question about how students will benefit from this project. Like, just an honest answer. He asked a question, how will students benefit from this project?
Enhanced green space, potentially arts and cultural amenities, potentially housing. Is there a housing issue in Marquette? I think we all understand that the answer to that is yes.
Veridia is the one that's running up the housing prices. I mean, it's not, I mean, like, shit. Like, and then my last question is, just to repeat this, can you promise us that Veridia will not be considered as a potential developer of this site given the conflict of interest?
Any RFP or RFQ that's issued by the NMU Foundation will be open to all master developers to submit proposals.
Including Veridia, despite their role in the NMU Foundation.
I think I've answered your question.
I appreciate it. Thank you. That means yes. That means yes.
Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions? I'd be happy to put a mask on. I was under the impression that people speaking up here were not required to wear a mask. Okay, I'd be happy to put it on if that satisfies everybody.
Dave, I have a couple questions. One, has there been an agreed upon price from UP Health Systems?
I can't comment on the terms of the agreement.
Well,
We have a non-disclosure clause in the agreement, so I'm not able to answer that question.
Okay, our neighbor is 150 miles east of here in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I did go to the meeting in the second floor of the hospital building when Jim Bogan stood up there and showed the plans for the new hospital as well as what they thought they were going to receive for the sale of this property. And they had $60 million on the slide that night. And I about fell off of my chair having just moved back here from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. But Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario had a similar thing here where they built a new hospital in 2011-12. And they have almost 600 square feet, about the same space that is here, and about the same configuration over the years. Their property actually is adjacent to the downtown and is on waterfront on the St. Mary's River. And in the end, it sold for $65,000 Canadian. And over in North Bay, they only got 5,000 Canadian for the old hospital. That's my first question. The second is, some of us in this room that have grayer hair remember something that happened at Michigan Tech in the late 80s and the early 90s between the Michigan Tech Fund and an organization they set up called Ventures Incorporated. And a couple of people ended up going to jail for embezzlement. And it cost a lot of people their jobs and a lot of embarrassment for Michigan Tech Fund, as well as a lot of business owners that sold to Michigan Tech Fund are laughing to the bank to this day because they ended up buying their businesses back for half or even a quarter less than they sold it to Michigan Tech Fund and are still operating. So I'm just maybe a little case study of what happened up at Michigan Tech with the Michigan Tech Fund and an organization called Ventures. And it was all legally approved by then Attorney General Frank Kelly as a viable organization, but it imploded, and it only took about 3 or 4 years. That's all I have to say.
I don't know if that required a response or not. My question was about the process of when you get to the point of deciding what's going to be put there, will you have community input for helping you decide what should be put there?
That's it. Thank you for the comment and suggestion. I don't know. I would imagine that community input would be certainly welcome.
One more question. So we asked how the space would benefit the students, and you said you are not sure yet. Well, do you have any ideas how it might benefit faculty? Because students are probably only here for maybe 4 to 6 years. Faculty are going to be here for very possibly
Sure.
several decades. So
Sure.
can you say it will benefit faculty, and in what way?
That's the goal. Yep. Thank you for the question. That is absolutely the goal. And as I stated, the mission of NMU Foundation is to catalyze and establish relationships to support NMU, and that includes faculty. The reason I want to be very clear, the reason I'm saying I don't know is because I don't want to prognosticate on what is possible or what might happen when we simply cannot know yet. And so the vision for this endeavor and the vision for the reason why the foundation is looking to be a catalyzing and enabling entity for this to move forward is 100% to support the campus community, including faculty, and housing is definitely part of that conversation. So that's what I can tell you. Yep.
Yeah, when I entered this room, I was told it was transparency and I have yet to see that transparency. You guys started this back in January of last year, and you haven't told nobody until now. What's going on?
I am sharing everything that I'm allowed to share outside of our non-disclosure agreement within the agreement with the hospital. That's what I can tell you. Yep.
How do we even know that's true? You can't tell us what you can't talk about. You can't tell us what you can talk about. How do we know anything?
John, you have a question?
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
I didn't know if you didn't recognize me with the mask on. So I guess it's oftentimes really confusing for people when we talk about this pot of money and that pot of money and these kind of money and those kind of money. When it's all the foundation, right? So there's the foundation and it has a whole bunch of money which is here to support NMU's interests. And so my question is, why are we spending any of that money, no matter which pot it's coming from, on fixing somebody else, the next door neighbor's project that they need to fix on their own, when we have so many other financial needs, some of which we haven't even gotten to today because of this problem,
And we need to talk about these other financial needs that we have that the foundation could also spend this same money on. And that's not even to begin the needs of staff and faculty, funds that are needed. So there's so many needs that NMU has from the foundation. Why are we even thinking that, doling any of the foundation's money out from any pot is worth our time and
John,
money?
thanks for the question. And again, what I'll say to that question, the answer is that the foundation is not using any donor money for this project.
Yeah, but is it using NMU Foundation money? I mean, is there an expense? Is anybody cutting a check or any kind of payment happening from the foundation for anything related to this? And if not, you standing here talking to us right now about this is spending the foundation's money. And I don't mean to get upset, it's just upsetting when we're wasting our money when we have so many needs for that money at NMU right now.
One more question. I'm getting the hook from Cindy that we need to move on from this topic to the other topics.
Perhaps you're not the best for this, but can you explain in depth how this fits into the 5-year plan? There's items on that 5-year plan that have gone moved forward. No work has been done on them for several years, like new sciences facilities, new labs, new classrooms. Those have been on the agenda for at least 3 years. No work has been done on that. How does this? How do various things in the 5-year plan get appraised relative to one another?
I think that's probably more germane.
Not to your own student.
I think that's probably more. Thank you for the question. I think that's probably more germane to the next topic. What I will say is that our initiative on this project in the due diligence phase and evaluating whether a potential redevelopment of the hospital site, former hospital site, can be conducted absolutely factors into complementing the NMU master campus plan.
If you do develop the hospital next door, could you please add some low-rent housing for the faculty?
Thank you for the input. Yes.
And any response to Lynn, real quick?
As I've said before, the foundation is simply an enabling entity that's facilitating this pre-prescribed process for pre-construction due diligence. We're not going to have the ultimate final say in whatever a master developer decides to do, but we will have input. Absolutely.
It does seem like you are quite the enabling entity. I know you mentioned that you were going to solicit community input. Here's a little bit of it early. As a member of the community, I just want to say we live in the middle of the woods. We don't need $70 million of NMU's money to be spent on enhanced green space.
Doc, I appreciate your questions. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Gavin Leach, Vice President of Finance and Administration, to continue on with the next portion of today's meeting. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm not sure. Okay. All right. Okay, here to talk about facilities plan overview and our process we go about in deciding our projects moving forward. Somebody mentioned about some 5-year plans and labs that will be discussed as part of this. But I think first I'll walk you through what the university goes through in our facilities planning process. What we do is we work on developing a 5-year capital improvement plan that is aligned with the 2019 Campus Master Plan and University Strategic Plan. Throughout, and I'll walk through some of the things we did, throughout the Campus Master Planning process, we do get a lot of community, student, faculty input throughout that process. And in the end, we develop a plan that is an opportunity-based plan, looking to where funding opportunities exist to be able to move forward on the projects that we consider. Factors that we use in identifying priority projects are typically heavily focused on student and academic experience. We utilize the campus master plan, the university strategic plan. We do facility assessments throughout the year. We look at critical infrastructure and maintenance needs, academic programming needs, and student enrollment and retention impact, as well as I mentioned, the opportunity for funding. We look for identifying long-term funding opportunities, and we believe right now we have an opportunity to move forward on a number of these projects, including state capital outlay money, bonding, restructuring of debt, donor funding, and one-time revenue sources such as capital and maintenance reserves. As I mentioned, the campus master planning process that we went through, we did get broad input throughout the campus community. We held a number of steering committees. We had a strategic budget and planning committee input, open forums that included faculty, staff, and students, dean's meetings, academic space meetings. You can see all of them on here, and it included also City of Marquette input. And we had a lot of broad input throughout campus and felt like it was a very good process getting everyone's input into what we're looking forward to. The groups engaged in these meetings helped identify priorities and types of projects that we should be considering in our long-term campus master plan. And again, it's a long-term look at facilities that we try to utilize in developing our overall plans. Highlighted are some of the projects that we identified that we believe we have a current opportunity to move forward on. This was out of the 2019 campus master plan that resulted from all the input from everyone on campus. You can see on there the number that we're looking at is the College of Business, expansion of the teaching laboratories that was mentioned earlier. We're looking at movement of hospitality management into the Northern Center for greater synergies with our dining services program and utilization of unoccupied space. As well as you can notice in this, we were also looking at several building demolitions such as West Hall and Grease Hall. Another area we looked at was student health and wellness for the physical and mental health sciences, trying to consolidate them in one location closer to the students. This would create greater access for the students while at the same time maintaining good access for faculty and staff that use the health center. And it is a great resource for everyone on campus. We also looked at the athletic campus and where we're not suggesting any projects in that area at this time. We do have a couple of major maintenance projects that need to be done, as those impact the student, academic, and community engagement experience on campus. So based on the plan and the factors mentioned, the campus master plan, strategic plan, facility assessments, critical infrastructure and maintenance needs, academic programming needs, student enrollment and retention, and funding opportunities, we identified the following projects to consider moving forward over the next 3 years. One is already underway that is part of a state capital outlay project for the career tech and engineering technology facility programs. Many of you know it as the Jacobetti complex on the north side of campus. That would be about a $28.6 million project. We're also looking, as we suggested in campus master plan, for hospitality and management to move to the Northern Center, but we also have unoccupied space that's available for the cosmetology program. Both of those would create greater access for the community to those programs and utilize unoccupied space and ultimately enable us to reduce the square footage in the Jacobetti complex and actually our overall carbon footprint of the university. We're also, as I mentioned, a health and wellness center. We're looking at new science teaching labs, which could include office relocations. Bear Center, they've been having growth in their services and really have outgrown the space that they're in. bringing the College of Business into the academic mall, which we've talked about for quite a few years, and really could be a beacon for them enhancing their enrollment and the student experience for students in the College of Business. Another one is McClintock is in need of major upgrades to their classrooms, to modernize those classrooms and make them better learning experience for the students, better teaching experience for the faculty. And Hardin Hall, which is used, it's been on our list for many years, as Leslie can probably tell you. It really impacts student success, retention. It's utilized heavily by students on campus, and we feel it's important to try to move forward on that project. I mentioned the athletic campus. There's two major maintenance projects that we're having to deal with in the athletic campus. And it's sort of on whether it's any building or any type of equipment that you're running, they deteriorate the minute you start using them. And in this case, with the ice making equipment, it's 32 years old now. It's at the end of life. It's hard to, can't get parts, and the refrigerant used is no longer being available. So we're having to replace that. And at the price tag, I really don't like of $6.5 million, but it is what it is, as we've done a number of estimates trying to reduce that cost. The dome turf replacement, this will be the second time we've had to replace it in 30 years. And when it gets to a certain point, you start to be concerned about potential injuries on utilization of the field. And so it's at a point now where we have to move forward with looking to replace that. We're also going to, parking is always an issue, but in this case, we're adjusting some of the parking near the Northern Center to accommodate changes that we're doing in the hospitality management and cosmetology programs for access for the students as well as the community. And then the demolitions I mentioned of Weston Grease Hall. Again, these projects were identified as a high priority, and it's consistent with the way we look at plans and prioritizing them. In addition to this, there's about $85 million in other projects that aren't on the list that will have to be dealt with in the future, as we have quite a few buildings on campus that we need to deal with, roads, HVAC systems, and everything. How will we fund these projects? We're getting $20 million from the state of Michigan, specifically for the Career Tech program. That one is underway right now. It's called it the Career Tech and Engineering Technology Facility, Jacob Eddy Complex. We're looking at donor funding of approximately $10 million. Utilization of capital maintenance reserves as the university annually sets aside for capital improvements, as it's an ongoing issue with consistently maintaining our campus and upgrading our campus over time. And that fund also consists of one-time savings that we may have in any year gets put towards the project. And the final piece would be issuing bonds of about $31.1 million. This possibility exists. We've been looking at refunding our 2012 bond issue. We have an opportunity to bring our rates from the mid-3s down to below 1%, which will produce annual savings. We'll have some expiring bonds over the next few years that we can issue new bonds and fit it within the current annual debt service that we currently have budgeted annually. That's able to be done due to the low interest market right now. In the new calendar year, that's expected to start to climb. So the opportunity is to move forward now to take advantage of those low rates. The opportunity is not going to be there for long on that. We have a positive bond rating, which makes us eligible to get lower interest rates at the current time. And we'd need to move forward in December into the capital markets to be able to sell bonds at that point. So that's the funding sources. As far as what are the next steps? Next steps is receive approval from the board for a funding plan for the projects. Secure funding through issuance of bonds on the capital markets. Once we receive the bonds, we have to expend 85% of those bonds within 3 years from receiving the money. And facilities will have their hands full, but they're ready to move forward on that. And that will involve working closely with the departments in doing the final programming for each of the projects as we get a lot of input into what we finally design and put forward for each capital project that we do. The final piece is completing the construction project within the time frame that we're looking at. Thought I'd give you a quick overview of the projects that we're looking at, and then I'll follow that with the proposed, I should say tentative timeline. And then we're going to get some additional comments from some of the areas that are affected that we're working with on the projects. The first project that we're underway with is a state capital outlay project, and this is the Jacobetti complex. And a number of you don't see this facility. It's on the north end of campus. It would be north of Wright Street, off of Sugarloaf Avenue. And this will be what we'll be renovating the facility to look like. Project creates major enhancements in the student learning experience, academic teaching experience, and really would help and enable attractiveness to recruiting and retaining students in the future. It renovates a facility that's already 42 years old, and it's currently 5 football fields under one roof, so there's a lot of maintenance that goes in that facility. And this is the one where we'd be reducing the existing facility by 25%, which ultimately will reduce the annual operating costs of that facility by about $240,000. It creates a dynamic, attractive, great learning environment. The project, as I mentioned, will reduce square footage. It'll also include informal learning spaces for students that don't exist down in that facility at the current time. And this is basically a floor plan rendering of the areas under construction. This is a look at some of the initial designs for informal learning spaces throughout the facility. Really, part of it is creating space outside the classroom for students to collaborate and extend their learning, as well as trying to bring more light into the facility, because in the UP in the winter it gets pretty dark up here, and so we try to create an opportunity to get as much light in the facility as possible. And here's some of the concepts for the renovated lab spaces and open learning spaces. And the other thing we try to do is create flexibility in the labs, so as programs change over the time, we're more adaptable to change that's happening in the market. The cosmetology renovation will happen on the first floor of the Northern Center. That's part of this project. It'll be moved into unoccupied space, and it will obviously create an attractive space for our students to learn. We'll create a good learning environment, and it also, the big thing is there'll be greater community access to that program. And the same thing goes for our hospitality management program. It'll actually move into the old area where the Wildcat Den was on the upper floor. And again, this will create some great synergies with dining services, as well as really create a good learning experience and opportunity for the students and the faculty, and we hope attract more future students to the university. And finally, as far as the Northern Center, we will complete renovation of the exterior. I'm not sure if many of you noticed that we went around about 2.5 sides, and we still have the remaining back side to complete. And that will be done as part of this overall project. The Health and Wellness Center, we're consolidating physical and mental health services that we believe will help better serve the NMU campus community. It will be consolidated in one area closer to the students. That was a goal during the campus master plan. It's been part of our strategic plan, is really trying to get those services closer to our students down in the residence halls and the apartments. And that would be on the west side of the dining hall, Northern Lights Dining Hall. And it would enable students from all that area to access it, from Academic Mall to walk down more readily to that area, as well as we would be, you can see we'd be producing parking right next to the facility for faculty and staff, as well as students that are visiting the health center. And the other thing it would do at the request of the pharmacist is have a drive-through pharmacy for people that need to pick up their pharmacy orders quickly and efficiently. So that's, again, it's really been a long part of our master plan. Health and wellness on campus is a priority, and we believe this will really help in that regard. And this shows the latest proposed layout within the facility. We continue to work on that with both counseling services and the health center for a final design before we move forward on construction. The science complex teaching labs, there's been a lot of feedback that we need more labs, and we understand that. And we're looking at various alternatives to how to get those labs in place for those programs. One was looking at, can we utilize existing space by reorganizing locations, utilizing space in West Science and potentially Whitman Hall or infill in the Commons area. The other one is we're still looking at, which we'd like to do because of it would have less disruption, would be if we can put an addition onto Weston Hall next to where a lot of the existing labs are would be the prime way to move forward on that. That one will be working with all the departments that would be affected to try to come up with the optimal plan and our final programming that we do for that. The Bear Center, as I mentioned, they've outgrown their current space they occupy with a growing load of clients. They needed new area to continue their growth and to better serve the patients, improve instruction and training for the students. It also was requested to have an area that could have better access for community members because they serve the broad community, not just Marquette County, but I think wider, and people come to the facility. This would be on Presque Isle in a facility that's not far from the Dome. As you can see from this map, it's not the prettiest design, but we haven't gone that far in the overall design process, just location. We developed a layout for the facility, and we're working with the staff, to the faculty and the department to try to find the optimal design that works for their needs. Next is we've been looking for a few years on the College of Business. There are some donor opportunities in this area. Right now, the College of Business has been located outside of the academic mall for quite a few years, and we've been trying to get them into the academic mall. Really, we wanted to do this to really accentuate the program, improve the opportunity for student recruitment and growth of programs, consolidate in the academic mall, and improve student learning environment, improve classroom space within the academic mall, because at times there are challenges with regards to that. This would add some additional classroom space to that area. And this is one of the renderings inside the facility in a larger lecture hall that we would be putting in there. There's been an identified need to have an additional large lecture hall on campus. And then the Hardin Hall renovation has been on a priority project for probably a decade now, Leslie. Has a major impact on student learning experience. It impacts student success and retention. It is a heavily accessed facility right in the core of the academic mall. And it has great visibility for prospective students in the recruitment process. And there's a lot of traffic that goes through there from the residence halls to Jamrich Hall, and we felt like this was a real opportunity to move forward to make this happen after all these years of looking at it. So those are the facilities that we would be looking at doing in this overall plan. I already mentioned the major maintenance projects and demos. There's not much more to say about that, but one of the things we also did is try to lay out a potential timeline. And this is tentative at this point. You can see Construction of Jacobetti Complex will begin in May of '22, so that's this coming May, the renovation. We'll actually begin work in this January in this very building to work on hospitality management and cosmetology areas. And then we're looking at the Health Center and the Bear Center for the spring of '22. You can see the teaching labs, by the time we get done programming and start going underway with the teaching space, it'll be somewhere between winter and spring of '23. Bear Events Ice Making, same thing. And we're trying to finalize design timelines, but looking at construction in spring of '23 and '24 for the remaining projects. So that's my run through of what we're looking at. We feel like we've tried to stay in line with the strategic plan, the campus master plan, academic programming needs, student needs on campus, and tried to address them as best we can. And right now we have the opportunity for a few folks that wanted to say a few words about what these types of renovations would mean to their programs. I don't know if Mike's here. Did he end up making it? I know he was quite busy. Mike? You want to just come up and say a few words? Or?
Hi, I'm Mike Andary. This is my 21st year at Northern, and we are getting a renovation that's going to help our students. So for all the students here, I know a lot of you are not in construction management, you're not in engineering technology or HVAC or welding, but those programs in career and technical education are very important, near and dear to my heart. And you know, as Gavin had mentioned, the building is 40 plus years old. Through the years, there's been some paint applied, there's been some Band-Aids applied, but you know, for this multi-million-dollar renovation to come through is I don't want to say I'm towards the tail end of my career, but I'm definitely closer to the end than the beginning. I'm appreciative to be able to be a part of it. I know Jim and Kathy and the engineering facilities planning team, including me in a lot of these meetings, it's been pretty cool. So that was really all I had to say. I was just thankful. Our students are going to benefit directly. We're going to be staying right there. I've already told Jim and Kathy we're not moving. We got a living lab. We're going to be able to see demo. We're going to be able to see a lot of cool stuff. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Next up, Chris Greer. Chris, there's Chris.
I just wanted to say a few words about how this will affect retention at the university. It seems to be the only thing I think about these days. We know the demographic cliff is going to hit us in 25, 26, 26, 27. So we will almost definitely have a drop in new students. And because of that, we need to keep every student that we can bring here. We want our students to connect to us, be retained, and successfully complete their degree. These projects will provide a better learning experience for our students, and that should equal higher retention. Students leave for many reasons, but a national survey showed that 25% leave because they don't think the college cares about them. I think clearly making these investments will show that we care about our students, we care about their environment, and we're providing facilities that will work well for them. 23% leave because of poor service. Service will be improved in all areas impacted by these, but I want to especially note the Health and Wellness Center and Hardin Hall. That will have a huge impact on services to students. 10% leave because of difficulty scheduling the courses that they need. Additional learning space will be added in the new College of Business building, science labs, Bear Center even has a classroom, which will free up a classroom over here, and possibly Hardin Hall. I don't know what that's going to look like because we're still working on the plans, but maybe we'll get more space there. A big reason students leave is that for whatever reason, they do not feel connected to the institution. So what can connect them? We know from students and alums and from national surveys that student organizations connect them to this institution. This will provide more meeting space for student organizations. Residence halls, knowing a faculty or staff member, there will be more space for that to happen informally and formally. On-campus jobs, I think that with all of this building, there will be more on-campus jobs available for our students. And they stay because of athletics. Intramurals, club sports, NCAA, and Olympic sports. So the replacement of the turf and ice making equipment is vital to this. It's also vital to courses that we offer, but it's vital to recreation on this campus. So I look at these projects as retention efforts, and it's really important to start working on them so that we can offset the enrollment drop that we envision hitting us in not too many years. Thanks.
Next up, I have Rob Wynn, Dean of Arts and Sciences.
For those who are in the sciences, I don't think I have to convince you of the fact that we need increased lab space. For those who may not be in the sciences, just a couple of facts and figures that you may not know. So West Science and Weston Hall house 7 departments or schools, including biology, chemistry, psychological science, earth, environment, geographical science, physics, nursing, and the School of Clinical Sciences. What you may not know is those 7 departments or schools account for 35% of the total enrollment at the university. Just as some examples, biology is currently the largest department on campus with over 700 biology majors. Over the past 5 years, chemistry has grown by over 350 majors. And this fall, psychological science has increased their enrollment 6.4% over their enrollment last fall at this time. The facilities are bursting at the seams. And to enhance the student learning experience, we certainly need to invest in more laboratory space. And so I think that this is a great use of university funds. Thanks.
Leslie, come up and talk about the library.
Sure, I'm happy to talk about the library. I suspect almost anybody in here who's met me has heard me talk about the need for the library renovation, especially our students who work there. Thank you. So, Hardin Hall was built in the late 1960s. If you've walked through the library in the last 50 years, you've seen the same shelving. You've seen a lot of the same space. You see now that we've gotten rid of a lot of print in a space that was designed to hold books and expand to hold more books. That's how it was built in the late 1960s. It was built before the 1970s energy crisis, and that's reflected in its incredibly high use of electricity and the way that its electric and infrastructure was developed. It was built before we even imagined laptops, much less before we were a laptop campus. Those of you who have studied upstairs know that electrical outlets are few and far between. Yes, I see lots of nodding from students. So my theory, I wasn't here in the late 1960s when it was built, but my theory is that the electrical outlets were placed for vacuum cleaner cords and only vacuum cleaner cords. Think about the distance, so they are. There's no other reason why they would have needed electricity up there, and it shows. Those of you who have studied or looked for books upstairs know that the lighting is poor. You know that it's a space that no longer encourages or reflects the level of creativity and scholarship that we have on our campus. And it's time for our library to show that we are a strong, creative, and scholarly facility, and our library reflects that in who we are. It encourages us to study, to be creative, to be good citizens through its sunlight, through its collaborative space, and through its space that allows for individual or collaborative study. So I'm pretty sure that all of you want to leave this evening, so I won't go on about the library renovation, but I am incredibly excited to see it on this list because it's something that, as Gavin said, is long overdue, and it will make a tremendous difference whether you're studying in the library, whether you're meeting friends, or whether you're using the new Learning Commons that will finally co-locate in an easy-to-find way. The Writing Center, the Language Lab, math tutoring, as well as the reference support that we offer in the library and the Digital Media Tutoring Center. We want every student to trip over tutoring. We don't want you to have to dig for the Writing Center downstairs. So this is going to be a great improvement to our campus that will benefit all of us. So thank you for including it on the list.
And then last but not least, Jerry Daniels, Executive Director of Admissions.
I don't know why I had to follow Leslie. I'll just take a minute because I suspect you would know what I would say. You know, spaces leave impressions. And as prospective students and their families and friends are touring campuses to make those decisions and see if it's the place for them, the spaces that they go through and see on their campus tour or go to when they're visiting with faculty in their offices and when they're seeing labs, all of those things add up to the series of impressions that help them make their decision. And you know, these kinds of new improvements certainly send a message of quality and investment and caring about what we do here to augment student learning and the faculty's creation and ability to teach students. And so, you know, I'm just thrilled about this because from a student recruitment perspective, when you can reduce the number of spaces that look like they need attention and increase the number of spaces that are really modernized and take into account energy efficiency and student learning needs, I think that just sends a very positive message. So thank you for all these projects.
Hard to follow those acts. So in conclusion, the current state of the bonding market and recent gains are allowing us to move forward on the projects. We went forward with a long identification process of priorities, and you've heard about the many needs here from the members that came up and spoke. And the capital and financing plan will be moving forward to the board on Thursday. I guess at this point, we'll open it for questions.
For this one. Hello. Okay. I just have a couple questions. The first one being, if you're going to get rid of Greece and West, why do we still need the hospital? It's just extra space.
Why do we need the what?
The hospital over there that we were just talking about being used for other space. Was that what we were talking about?
Oh, I don't. The hospital isn't part of this at all.
Well, yeah, but if we're taking down buildings, why do we still need that other building?
Yeah, it's unrelated. I mean, I don't.
Okay, well, then we're talking lots about
I don't know.
students.
We don't own the hospital on
Yeah,
our
but
part.
if
so.
we're going to acquire it, why do we do that if we already have all this space?
That's not part of the university.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyways, we're hearing lots about the students, but I want to remind us that without the faculty who work here, we won't have anyone to teach us in these new buildings. And lastly, if we're talking about retention, then I think we need to listen to the students and the teachers because teacher retention is just as important as students, and without them, no one's here.
Thank you. Yes, we go back
Would you,
and forth. Okay.
Before I begin, I'd like to verbally acknowledge that Northern Michigan University occupies the ancestral homelands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. Who operated in community forward thinking and action in the stewardship and governance of this land. I would like to take a few moments to share my story of walking on this campus for the first time after spending 3 years in South Dakota away from my homelands. The first time I came to campus, which was 3 months after I had started my position, I was greeted by CNAS faculty member, April Lindola, who gave me the tour of the Center for Native American Studies, Whitman Hall, and ending in Whitman Commons. When I walked into the room, my eyes were immediately drawn to the head of the classroom that held a collection of flags representing each of the tribal nations from which our students, faculty, and staff have come. Seeing my tribal flag featured here, I welled up with tears and said to her, "Miigwech, for bringing me home. I'm so happy to be here in a space where I belong." A few months later, I had the honor of seeing the same reaction on my 7-year-old niece's face for the first time. She saw her tribe's flag and learned the significance of being represented in a classroom and an institution like this. She and other students that walk through these doors have very similar reactions, when the reality is there's very little space made for Indians in higher education. This is a reaction I look forward to experiencing with many of my students presently and in the future every time we use this space. Over the past few months, I've been crafting a narrative to encompass these feelings, to captivate these moments, and share these with community members and students that they can experience these feelings and see themselves on this campus. Imagine a wave of Indigenous students feeling this sense of belonging here long before they enroll in a single class. This is a movement that I am interested in. However, the stream of the center and its faculty was challenged only a few days after being recognized on Indigenous Peoples Day for the first time on NMU's campus. We learned that there are plans to reutilize and re-envision underutilized spaces such as Whitman Commons and other spaces across campus. While the center agrees that we all need a little more room to breathe and teach in, we are concerned by the university's definition of underutilized spaces. Whitman Commons is a valued space to the Center for Native American Studies, Languages, Literatures, and International Studies, and the School of Education, Leadership, and Public Service, where we work hard to educate others about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the classroom. The international and tribal flags featured in this space should not be dismembered from us to be featured in an inaccessible location. Our students see this representation every day, every program, and are inspired by to be better colleagues and educators for tomorrow. As these discussions continue and campus leadership includes departments across campus, I encourage us to consider the emotional and cultural significance of these areas that are being considered and caution against the academic gentrification of these spaces. Of course, we would love to see more students in all of these spaces, and accommodations must be made, but not at the expense of a student's overall experience on this campus that includes spaces that were designed to promote inclusivity, provoke belongingness on our campus, continue and improve retention, and stimulates cultural and critical thought for a brighter future. Miigwech, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I actually came up here to speak on the exact same thing and had kind of a question. As a science faculty member, I do completely understand we need a lot more lab space. We needed a lot of that. But I was astounded when I heard that we were considering removing the space that Center for Native American Studies and the Native American Students Association have spent a lot of time and effort to make theirs. And I think most science faculty, I hope most science faculty would say no. And I would also like to say, does the university really feel good about this when we're putting a lot of lip service to diversity, equity, and inclusion at the same time?
I'd just like to add that is a big reason we are looking at trying to do this as an addition to Weston Hall and not impact that facility. We have been hearing that message, and we're definitely looking at alternatives. So I just want everybody to be aware of that.
Well, I hope I can remind you of that.
Yeah.
So buju nindinwe magnadog minwa nij pamata sijig minogi jigabo indigena kaz mesquabi kong indunjba migaziando dame. Buju, hello everyone, all of my relatives and friends, nindinwe magnadog minwa nij pamata sijig. My name is Bazil Panik. I am a senior majoring in Native American Studies here at NMU. I have had the honor to serve as the current president of the Native American Student Association for the past 3 years. I'm also very active in participating in diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and opportunities, mostly issues, on this campus. So my ancestors were heavily engaged in the public participation process every time they made even the most minor decision. The entire community must be consulted from the youngest to the oldest before any action was taken. For example, during the treaty negotiations, large groups of Anishinaabeg gathered. The Ogimag and Gitche Anishinaabeg, the leaders, consulted all that were present about the decisions made regarding the cession of indigenous land. The colonizers repeatedly complained about this, stating that the treaty negotiations were taking too long, then complaining back to Washington, D.C. that we need to get this over with to begin to log and mine these lands for money and expansion of the so-called New World. Quick decisions, coercement, and lies led to the land being stolen from the Anishinaabeg. Don't repeat the actions of those colonizers during those treaty negotiations. To reiterate, when you don't include the people these facilities plans affect, you repeat those actions. When you don't include the Center for Native American Studies and the Native American students during those conversations, especially regarding the renovation of Whitman Hall, you are repeating the actions of those colonizers, effectively continuing to steal land from the Anishinaabe. These statements are a reminder that we will hold you accountable for your comments that said, and this is a quote, "Focused discussions and meetings will take place with areas impacted by the proposed changes." We will hold you accountable to that. As students, we have seen the lack of accountability that the university's administration has shown to faculty and students. We, as students, are the key stakeholders of this university. Therefore, we stand before you to hold you accountable for the inclusivity of faculty and students in any and all decisions made about this university. Miigwech, thank you.
Okay, so I heard we have been talking a lot about a new business building and also getting new science facilities, which I understand those need to be updated. However, you have only discussed the business and the sciences so far. You have not actually discussed anything that you will do with the humanities. You have discussed tearing down Grease Hall, and everyone seems to have concerns about Whitman. So where are you planning on putting the humanities? Because you do not seem to have a plan for how you will keep humanities important going forward.
On the
I
humanities?
think that was a question. Yeah.
Which departments in particular are you referring to?
Ask him to name the humanities.
Jamrich Hall, we want to keep all of them here. And Jamrich Hall was a big part of those programs that you're referring to, as well as we had done previous renovations to art and design facility. So we've moved forward on a number of those. Those have been done previously, and that's why we're addressing some of the needs in the science areas now.
But when you tear down Grease Hall, where do you plan on putting the departments that currently have their heads?
Okay, I understand what you're talking about now, okay. Those would be part of the Northern Enterprise Center and the College of Business. We would be creating new space for them in that facility.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry I didn't address that earlier. I'm sorry. That should have been listed.
Bonjour, Indigenous cause Judd Sojourn. I'm a teacher in Center for Native American Studies. I teach mostly variations of Ojibwe language, Odawa, and we're just starting to get into Potawatomi a little bit. We were told on Wednesday that it was a done deal, that they were going to requisition Whitman Hall. It's a room about half the size of this. It has flags all around it from all the nations in the world, and it has, I would say, about 12 tribal nations flags there as well. You have a screen on one end, a sound system. We meet there for all kinds of community events. So we meet there, for example, Leonard and Mary Moose are some elders that were there not so long ago, and they did Anishinaabe star teachings. If you ever get a chance to visit with Anishinaabe elders, I would greatly recommend it. What I'm trying to say is this is probably the only interior space where the Center for Native American Studies can host community events. And like I'm saying, there was sort of a lack of consultation, or that's how it felt. We are very used to that. We are very well accustomed to being cut out of the conversation passively, casually, and so on. So if that happened, it's a familiar taste. If it didn't, we look forward to detailed and comprehensive consultation going forward. I like the idea of Weston Hall expansion. But I'm just trying to say, two things. Keep the commons as is. It's beautiful. It's welcoming. It's a warm space we've built through thousands of conversations. It's used by other departments as well, languages, education, School of Education. And really, I think any department that wants to use it can go in there and host events. So keep the commons as is. It's a beautiful space. We're strong allies with the environmental sciences, and this has sort of inadvertently driven a wedge. And that lack of consultation, again, on the part of the administration could result in bad blood between the sciences and Native American Studies, which is a bad thing. We need a strong alliance there for environmental studies and Native American Studies to move forward in protecting Mother Earth. So that's all I had to say, really.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Miigwech Judd and others who've spoken on behalf of the Whitman Commons. I just want to say I don't think there's any wedge, because this was a shock to us too in the sciences. I'm over in the Weston Hall, and yes, faculty are busting at the seams over there. Lab space is at a premium, and we definitely need more lab science space. But I'm here to say that Whitman Hall cannot happen. That cannot be an option. We had an amazing Indigenous Peoples Day. I was moved to tears when we had a bunch of students and faculty with the land acknowledgement sign. And it was an amazing, remarkable statement on behalf of the university leadership about, acknowledging the history of the land that we're on and whose land we share here. And so it was just this powerful movement. I felt like this great energy on campus. And then the next week, we heard this announcement made that Whitman Commons, where I've attended many events and celebrations that the Center for Native American Studies hosts in this space, that it was going to be turned into lab space without their consultation. And we were stunned and shocked. And so I'm here to just publicly let people aware of this proposal and to strongly recommend the Weston Hall edition. I think that's fantastic. I really was just stunned at this decision, and think it needs to really be rethought.
Just so you know, there wasn't a done deal, not a done decision. So
Okay, well, I'm glad to
I
hear
do
that.
appreciate
But
all the
here's your public
comments we've been
forum, I
receiving.
guess. So here's a little bit of input. So.
I appreciate it, though.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. Ersa Anwatin Indigenikaz, Wababikanikag, Nindunjaba, Makwa Nindudem. My name is Ursula Anwatin. I speak to you as a student and one of the Ogimog, our leaders of the Native American Student Association, again on the topic of Whitman Commons. I would like to add that Whitman Commons has proved to be a very unique gathering place for both the Center for Native American Studies and the Native American Student Association, in part because of its proximity to the fire site, which acts as an outdoor learning space for classes, as well as a ceremonial space for events that connect both ceremonial and cultural aspects. Also, the open floor plan and flexibility of Whitman Commons specifically is very conducive to CNAS and Native American Studies or Native American student associations work towards decolonized leadership structures and decolonized class structures. Almost all of the other event spaces available to student organizations on campus are structured in a tiered fashion, such as lecture halls and Jamrich. These types of spaces really promote hierarchical teaching, hierarchical learning, and hierarchical power structures, while we're trying to create the exact opposite. Whitman is one of the only spaces on campus where we can place value on all voices equally within an event space or a classroom space. That also allows for public participation and a larger crowd. I would encourage spaces like with Whitman's flexibility and open floor plan, even in other projects that you guys are working towards in the future. This isn't just important for me and the Native American Student Association as stakeholders, but it's important because we are trying to teach decolonized organizational structure to all other student organizations across campus, as well as our faculty and staff. So spaces like this are going to be more highly utilized in the future as we further decolonize our university as a whole. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you.
So I
go
kind of
ahead.
have
Go
like
ahead, yeah.
a more simple question regarding the parking.
Mhm.
I've seen over 5 years of being here, I've seen this campus enrollment increase, and yet nothing has been done about the horrible parking situation. If you're so worried about renovating these big things to bring in new students while doing nothing to the parking, wouldn't that create more of a mess than it already is?
I always appreciate parking questions, and we are adding some parking spaces, as we mentioned, on near the Northern Center. We always are looking at other parking, and overall, actually, our enrollment over the last 10 years is down 23%. So that's been a major change in the institution. But we're consistently looking at parking. We tried to add it where possible. We've opened up the areas down below the Art and Design North and what would be east of Hardin Hall, to try to accommodate some of that flow, but it's always a good question. We also have a parking and traffic committee that I look to help guide some of the planning for that. So I appreciate the input on that,
Yeah,
though.
I just asked because you said you added some parking, but you're not just trying to bring in some people, you're trying to bring in bigger numbers.
I
Then you're
agree.
adding for parking.
I agree. Go ahead.
Ani Boujou, my name is Kristen Hall. I am continuing the wheel of speaking on Whitman Commons, just to double make sure that everybody knows about how the Native American Student Association feels. I'd also like to mention that I'm a non-Indigenous member / ally. So without the Whitman Commons, there would be a loss of all the things that I've learned over these past few years. One of the most important teachings I got to learn in Whitman Commons was an ASEMA teaching, which is tobacco, and we made sacred tobacco with an Indigenous teacher that I'm very thankful to have met. And with making that ASEMA, I have given it to the earth and friends and family, and has traveled as far as South Dakota, giving back to the lands. So without that would be lost. I also probably would not be minoring in Native Studies if it weren't for the exposure and welcoming room and atmosphere that CNAS and Whitman Commons has provided for us so far. Taking away from the Native Studies would continue the colonization aspect that America has started since the beginning of time. And we've also discussed that there are tribal flags displayed, but there's also a beautifully made canoe and other artifacts displayed in there. And so that, as I said, would just continue the colonization. So making that decision, you always have to, an Anishinaabe teaching is that you always have to plan about how what you're doing right now could affect the 7 generations ahead of you. And So not only taking away that now would affect the Native students, but it would affect any potential Native students down the line, and that if you take away this common space, what is going to be taken away next? Also would like to say that it's kind of a slap in the face after the land acknowledgement that just took place like about almost a week ago. I feel like it kind of shows disrespect, like, oh, this is Anishinaabe land, but we're not gonna have room for you to have your teachings shared. And also would like to say that I'm regrettably a biology student, so I understand the lab problems, but there are currently 2 buildings for science. One of them is 3 floors. And so, like I said, CNES has their little room and then Whitman Commons, and that's it. So, miigwech for listening.
Appreciate your comments.
So I won't touch the science side of this discussion because I think we have enough representatives on that side, but I will get on 2 of them. So I have been here 4 or 5 years now. I've honestly lost track. I've done my undergraduate here, and I'm now a master's student here. I have students who came here to participate to support our faculty today. I'm still not going to touch that. I'm going to touch first the guy who was right in front of me, the parking situation. How about you work with him, and instead of developing that stupid building into something else, we get some parking? Because I've been here for long enough that I know we need parking, and we need specifically parking for commuters. We need parking for commuters who come to this campus who can't find parking spots. I can remember days of trying to get a parking spot next to Whitman, and I'd have to park over in the dirt parking lot over there, and I'd be late 20 minutes for class, and I'd get here 15 minutes before the bell, or before my class started, whatever. I'm back in high school today. I'd be late 20 minutes because I'd check every single parking lot, trying to find something closer before I found one all the way over there. So work together and actually help your students and this community, because that might actually help somebody. Second thing, and yes, I'm riled up. Second thing, who designs the buildings? Because you want to know the buildings that I'm most comfortable in? Definitely ain't this one. You want to know why? All that glass. These are removable. You want to know the other building I'm not comfortable in? Jamridge. Want to know why? All the glass. You want to know the other one? That stupid student classroom all the way down there at the bottom of that hill. Because of all the glass. You know what you've made? You made fish bowls. You know what that does? And what you'll do if you put that in over at that Career Tech Center? God help it if there's ever a fucking active shooter on this campus. Because you just created a fishbowl. Are you going to put in bulletproof glass on every single room? Did you think about it? I am the child of a cop. I walk into every room and I think about it every time I walk into a room. I don't like having my back to a door. I'm sitting in that corner where I can keep my eye on that door. Did you think about it when you planned these buildings? My entire generation grew up scared of being shot. I like pretty buildings, but they're not safe. So maybe you need to go back to the design board and think it over again. I came from Bay College before this. They have a really nice area for their tutoring center. I loved it. You know what I hated? I couldn't lock the door on the tutoring rooms. The walls were made of glass. It had solid walls on this side, glass on this side, and a door I couldn't lock. So my ex and I one day took a table, and we found out if we could shove it behind the door to keep the door from opening.
Did you think about it?
I appreciate your comments.
It wasn't a comment, it was a question.
So something really stood out to me that I believe the vice president said. She said that students will often leave schools because they don't feel cared about. I can't begin to feel cared about when there's no regard at all for our staff or our faculty. And another thing that really put a sour taste in my mouth is that we can talk about this new building that we're apparently buying, but we can't give any reasoning for it, what we're doing with it, no explanation of anything. But then our faculty have to come up here and defend why we have to renovate their buildings. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why do we have to basically tell everyone here, oh, well, this is why we need these renovations? Like, obviously, we need bigger spaces for our students. We shouldn't have to be telling each other, oh, like, is this okay? Like, no, obviously that should be okay. What isn't okay is like making purchases on buildings that we don't even know what we're doing with.
My question for Vice President Leach, Chris Kirk from Health and Human Performance. I have a very specific question about some of the slides you presented, talked about including the constituents on campus into the processes of planning. One of the committees that you listed in the slide was the Campus Master Planning Committee. When was the last time that committee met?
Last year, Jim? Yeah, that'll be included as part of. Jim
November
will be
9th,
on-
2020.
Okay.
Many of the projects that you showed on your graph listed at least 5 that were in the design phase. And reading the Campus Master Planning Committee charge, the committee should see those plans as they move from engineering and planning to the administration. When did the committee see all of those plans that were in the design phase? Was it prior to that November 9th meeting?
They haven't yet, Jim? Okay. Okay. Well, they'll be moving forward through.
Because I'm on the committee and I haven't gotten that email yet.
You want to come up here and say it, Jim?
So yeah, the committee's role is, is to review each one of the projects as they come forward and make sure that they're consistent with the master plan. And I know, Chris, you were at the last meeting, and I believe we looked at the College of Business.
That was the only agenda item, correct?
Right, and at the time, because it was thought that that may be moving forward, because at the time there was a donor possibility.
Okay.
So each one of these projects that are here are in the master plan, and we've talked recently that it's time to get the committee back together and start to review all of these. You are correct. The process is that it goes through the master plan. The master plan approves that it's consistent with what's in the plan, or the master plan committee approves that it's consistent with what's in the plan, and then the project moves forward.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstand because I was new to the committee back then. Isn't there a Board of Trustees meeting this Thursday?
There is.
Are these projects on that agenda?
They are, yeah.
Is that typical that the projects would go to the Board of Trustees before it went through the Master Planning Committee? Again, I'm new to the committee, so I'm just trying to figure it out.
So when the committee gets together and we review projects, so right now, each one of these projects is consistent with the plan. Usually when the committee gets them, they're at 2 different levels of design. Kind of a site plan where we have a general layout, we know what's going in the building, we know what the building looks like, and we call that a phase 200. And then I believe we bring it back when the plans are more refined at a phase 400. These plans aren't at that stage yet.
Okay. I guess I have more to learn because again, what role does the Board of Trustees play in, I guess, on Thursday in terms of these projects?
Just approving funding to be able to even do the plans, and that's what Jim will be moving forward with
So
on.
it's funding to do the plans, not the projects. in and of themselves.
Well, and then begin the planning phase with the projects after that. And so that's where we start to sit down with everybody on finalizing all these details, which will include the Campus Master Planning Committee, all the departments that are being impacted as part of that process.
So maybe some of my confusion today will help the administration see that what we started this session with, the idea of transparency, you have a little problem with that on this campus.
There's always opportunities to improve, Chris. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and I look forward to learning more and contributing to the committee.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm a little nervous. I wrote my question down. My name is Emily. I'm a student here, and I've been here for about 3 years now. You mentioned that a lot of the capital projects were improving and expanding the university. So I suppose my question to you is, why are you considering $90.6 million in changes that will only help the majors you care about? Those smaller majors are here. I'm one of them. The humanities majors and the social sciences that you failed to mention, like social work and sociology, we're here. And we are speaking about what we need, and you are not listening. So what about the students and staff that are here right now that will be directly influenced and affected by these changes that you're making?
We've gone through a lot of capital projects on campus and just about all our buildings. And we rotate through the various sciences, the humanities, all the programs. I'm not sure which buildings you're referring to that they're in that need attention, but we look at art and design, we look at, we have all those programs that we move in from Grease Hall into the College of Business building. And, and Jamrich Hall, that was one we invested in, not 2014. So we've tried to address all our programs to the best we can. Okay. Not just the sciences. It's not just the science. This round happens to be a little more focused on the sciences, where we have addressed other programs previously.
Okay, well, the students are here, and we're telling you what we need, and you guys are not listening. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Hey, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's sort of interesting how it relates to the last student's comments, but I didn't really plan that out. I was going to thank Dr. Chris Greer for bringing up the importance of showing students that you care about them and that they feel understood and appreciated, and that's what many psychological scientists call the need for belonging. It happens to be one of my research interests. And I wanted to just recognize that they're all here. First of all, I haven't heard a lot of the talks from the podium yet, thanking you all for showing up and showing that you care about this institution. I also wanted to just sort of comment that in all likelihood, their presence does show that they know the faculty do care about them. And then I just wanted to make sure, if that wasn't the reason you were here, that you knew that the faculty do care about you and appreciate your presence. Mm-hmm. And then I just wanted to comment on, these look like really wonderful projects, and hopefully as you look forward to which ones you're actually going to invest the money in, when we think about 96-point-something millions of dollars, I'm not really paying attention to the exact numbers, but that could, one little piece of that, if maybe one of the projects that didn't have to happen now was set aside, that would fund a lot of faculty lines, which are drastically needed on this campus. And before you answer that question with this pot of money, that pot of money, and these funds and those funds, and it's different money and whatever the typical answer is, the Board of Trustees and the Executive Administration does have the ability to make budget transfers. And money, whether it's in this pot or that pot or wherever you saved it for or what you intended to do with it, I think you can do the right thing and invest in faculty lines and in faculty compensation and, maybe not do all the projects at once. Because clearly that's what the community wants.
Right.
Bonjour, April Lindela, Indigenous. I'm a professor of Native American Studies. Well, I too absolutely have a lot of love and care and investment and energy put into the Whitman Commons. My comments today are more about the overall tenor of the relationship of what's going on between faculty and administration. I heard excellent comments by Dr. Greer and Jerry Daniels about impressions with regards to recruitment and retention. And the time and energy that my faculty colleagues and I give to students is about those things as well. We give of our time to meet with prospective students. We give of our time to talk to their parents. You all know this, and yet we feel that we have not been respected at the negotiating table this semester. And I appreciate that we're having this open forum about structures and buildings and needs in that area. But some of us are very, we feel very frustrated that that conversation is not finding a space in a middle ground. And I would just want to thank, like John did, everybody who's here in support of the faculty today, who spoke on behalf of the faculty. We really are in a place where we're just like, we don't understand why we're not coming to find where we need to be as a faculty and administration to make our contract possible. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Terry Delpier. I'm from the nursing department. And I have a couple of things to say. I had to jot them on my hand. It's an old nursing trick. And I realize that the foundation is separate from the administration. And as I watched all these very worthy, endeavors, I'm just wondering if the foundation is supposed to be supporting the goals of the university, how come they aren't investing in any of those really worthy causes? Why? And a kind of a companion of that, so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, none of the donor money is going towards this, but that's a huge wad of money sitting around somewhere. Where did it come from? And how are you hoping to get any further donors if we think you have a lot of money just laying around to buy an old junky hospital? Okay, that's question one, and I don't expect an answer. I don't. Two, and this kind of goes along with that idea of retention, the buildings are not going to reach out to our students. They may look pretty, they're great places to be, and yes, Leslie, you're overdue. But it's the people in them that make the connections, and you are starving some of our people. I had the fortune to meet with a partner of one of our current new faculty. They're on food stamps. That's how we're paying them. That's shameful.
Ani Miigwech, I do have a concern. I'm an elder in my ancestral native. I'm also an elder at this institution. I started in 1998. I know we are resilient. We finally got our Indigenous Peoples Day, which I congratulate you guys for. But I watched something happen. Over where those new dorms are, I lost a piece of property, an important part of me. It was our native medicine circle that was taken when those new dorms went up. I do not And I will not stand by to watch you take Whitman away from me. That is one thing that should be taken off the table and have no consideration. It is a if you people would go there and see, it's not only my native flags that fly in that commons, it is the French, it is the German, it is the Spanish flags that are in there. It represents a world cultural center. And you're saying you're going to take it away? No, that's not right. And like I said, I appreciate the land acknowledgement that was put up for my Anishinaabe cousins.
So I'd like to start off by pointing out a couple things that I find a little ironic. First, I find it ironic that we speak of transparency when the people steering the ship of this university directly into an iceberg are hiding behind their computer screens when it comes time to face the public. Second, I find it ironic that we are talking about laying the foundation of new buildings when the real foundation of this university is crumbling. So, if indeed the Board of Trustees is listening, I'd like to take a moment to address them. When we look at you, we don't see 8 venerable members of the Northern Michigan University Board of Trustees. We see 8 abject failures. You had the opportunity to come to a reasonable agreement with the AAUP for months, and yet you refused to negotiate until their old contract expired in July. Shame on you for that. The faculty are now approaching 120 days without a contract, purely because you refuse to give them a fair deal. Shame on you. All the while, you guys lied through your teeth to your students, your staff, and your community alike to make us believe that you were being fair at the negotiating table when you clearly weren't. Shame on you. And sure, you went ahead and put a Band-Aid on the gaping wound that you opened by firing our charlatan president. But you really didn't fire him. He's taking a year-long paid vacation before he goes ahead and gets a cozy job as a professor, making 3 times the amount that the next highest paid faculty member makes, and then retires lavishly to his lake house. Again, shame on you for that. If you have any respect for this university at all, you will get your priorities straight, and you will fix the real foundation of this university. As students, we are here to learn, and we appreciate the tireless efforts of our faculty more than you could possibly know. They are the ones that enable us to make our dreams reality, and we demand that you treat them better.
Hi, my name is Jordan Boylan. I'm a senior history major, and I'm also a teaching assistant for the history department. I'd like to ask a question regarding the demolition of Grease Hall. You mentioned that you're moving the departments located in Grease Hall into the School of Business building that you're building in the future. But what I'd like to know is, during the demolition time, where are the departments going to go? Is the building going to be completed before you demolish Grease Hall?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, me again. Because I find it interesting that after I spoke about what she just mentioned earlier, you know, demolishing Grease Hall, you mentioned that it would be in the new college business building, which, okay, Fair. One question, why wasn't that in the slides? Because was that thought through at all, or was that something that just came up now? Two, why are a lot of us hearing about the Whitman demolition for the first time? And why have you not mentioned that if this goes through, where will these departments go? So fine, everyone agrees, goes to the College of Business. Where are these other humanities departments gonna go, and why do you not seem to value the humanity majors on campus?
I think I had said the humanities departments would be in the Northern Enterprise Center, or the College of Business building, but it'll house College of Business as well as those humanities programs. And as far as parking, we'd continue to adjust parking as necessary to meet the demand. Oh, I thought there was a question on parking again, so. Can you repeat your question then?
To make it simple, to make it easy, where were the,
We're still working on all that program. That's why we need to we meet with the departments and go over all the planning. That's what we always have to do on these projects. It hasn't been defined, so we'll make sure that. We've had a lot of great comments here on Whitman Commons, and I've written a number of them down. So we'll make sure we work with everybody on it that's involved. Yeah, thank you.
I'm Ashley Fitzpatrick. I'm a transfer student from a tiny school in Ohio. I came up here to get involved in the science departments, and I'm paying a lot more money to go here than I was my other school. So I guess I just have a question. When I came here to visit, I was under the impression that the administration actually valued their faculty and that my money was going towards their paychecks. But I'm just wondering where the money is going, and just kind of emphasizing the point of we need to actually get the faculty a contract, because I'm paying for this. I moved and I'm paying myself. I work a full-time job as well as doing full-time school just so I can be here to take the classes that I need. So it's very frustrating to me when I moved here thinking my year was going to be great, and it's turned out to be just me fighting alongside faculty to try to get them basically the benefits that they deserve. So.
You said you're concerned about being connected to your students and that there's been a huge disconnect between you, the high-paid board members, and the staff and faculty. Well, I can't speak for everyone in this room, but for me, it's because I simply don't trust you. When we ask you the main questions and you're like, oh, that's confidential, can't talk about this, can't talk about that. But heck, I learned every wrong way to use the word due diligence, trust me. I mean,
Actually, I was not the one talking.
Oh, no, it was your buddy before you, trust me. But anyways, to get that connection back with your students, we've all heard it. College is a business first. And what we're paying for is an education. That's the product. When you don't tell us everything, that's like blindly buying into a product. You don't do that. You need to build the trust with your students if you want to have that connection back with them. I mean, with all due respect, I see you when you're taking this criticism, you're like a dead fish. Your eyes are completely glazed over, and you're just, thank you for your comments. That's literally your base answer. You're not paying attention.
I'm paying attention, yeah.
You literally got lost. That's not paying attention.
Hello.
Hi. I'm just going to give Gavin a break. Okay. I think, first of all, I do want to say I believe what's going on now is important, and I am listening carefully. There has been an administration change. This is, I think, my third week. People who know me know that I am transparent. I'm a little too blunt at times, but I am listening. And I'm also meeting with students across campus. So you are being heard. You might not be aware of who all the meetings that are occurring and going on, but they are happening. And I just want to acknowledge that Native American Studies is an extremely important part of this campus. I certainly recognize that. And I think if Judd were here, he would tell you that he sent me an email when it was discussed that there was a possibility that Whitman Commons was going to be used. And immediately I brought that and said, we have to look elsewhere. I mean, you know that. So I would also say that none of us is perfect and we all have stumblings. And one of the things I've counted on from my colleagues and friends in Native American Studies and who are of diverse background is to teach me. And sometimes we go into things not knowing what we don't know. And one of the things I said is, we can't just take away something from people who always have lost things. And I meant that. I meant that with my heart. So I guess what I'm asking for right now, while I listen to what your concerns are, is to give us a little grace, because we are listening. We are. Not everything can be solved immediately, but I do believe both sides are working hard for a contract. I'm hopeful that we will get there soon. We've made some good strides, and I thank the people who are involved in that. So my understanding is this room is going to have to be closed pretty soon. So if the individuals, is there anybody else who, besides the people who are here, I want you to feel like you need to, you know what I mean? I want to hear what you have to say. But if there's not anybody else, then this will conclude once we hear from these individuals. Okay? Fair? All right. Good. Who's next? You?
Hello, my name is David Mendez Cruz. I am a secondary education major here on Northern. It's my third year. Kind of nervous. Bunch of white people, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's not funny. It's a bad thing. As a student of color, I believe it's vital for us to feel welcomed, especially in a predominantly white institute and the Upper Peninsula as a whole. With that being said, what is Northern doing about eradicating systemic racism performed by its leaders? Will faculty officials be trained or take a course on how to deal with students from different demographics, specifically, but not only limited to inner city students from Detroit, Michigan, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Chicago, Illinois, from where I'm from? Mm-hmm. As an individual, that I hope that you guys are listening to what I'm saying, and we don't want performative activism. We want change.
You deserve change.
Right, but I will not be leaving this microphone until
So what I would tell you is we recently had the diversity officer from University of Flint, Michigan, came and gave a presentation to the deans and department heads and the directors in academic affairs as a first step. We are now looking towards having a series of workshops. We all, again, make mistakes. We don't know what we don't know. All of us carry implicit bias that we're not even aware of. So we are definitely working on making strides with that. I'm going to be working with Jason Nicholas to do a very focused strategic plan. One of the things we need is a very focused strategic plan on diversity, inclusion, and equity, and I plan to address
Will
that.
that diversity also be in the leadership and board of trustees as well, or would it just be predominantly white again?
Will what?
Will there be diversity in the board of trustees, or would it continue being white men and women?
Well, we have diversity on our board of trustees. I'm sad to say that Donna Marie Brown is going to be leaving, and there's other diversity beyond color. So
Is there also diversity when it comes to queer people?
I'm really sorry. I'm having
Is there
trouble.
diversity when it comes to queer people as well?
Yes.
Very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I want to apologize if I'm a little bit stuttery. I actually was not planning on coming up in here to speak, but I felt that I needed to. As you were talking about retention and what you're talking about with retention, my career goal is to be a professor. That is what I want to do. And my goal is to work here.
Wow.
But the thing is, that has changed. Not entirely, but it has made me strongly consider what I'm going to be doing. with how the faculty here has been treated. I have met professors, and I have professors that are taking second, third, fourth jobs just to be able to feed their families. That is not okay. That is not the way that you should treat, or I should say we should treat, our faculty. That is not the way that this should work, and it is absolutely not the way that we should continue to work. And I understand that you are trying to come to this contract, or at least people are saying that they are trying to come to this contract. Whether or not that is actually the case is very much up to debate. But that is completely, that doesn't undo the harm that has already been done. And we are looking at not only the retention of our current faculty, that is absolutely important. The faculty that is right here, right now, has helped build what we have right now. But we also have to be concerned about the retention of future faculty. And this is a stain. This is a stain that you can't just, bleach out. This is not an easy fix. This is a stain that will remain here as a symbol of what happened here. It doesn't just disappear when the contract is finally met, because this will always be a part of my memory and a lot of people's memory. So that's that for that. I don't really have much more else to say, but thank you for granting me this time.
So I appreciate what you had to say, and I agree with you. This is a time in campus that I'm really unfamiliar with. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been around this campus since 1969. The library was new when I got here. So it is troubling to me because I came up through the ranks. I was faculty. And I see faculty as my colleagues, and I know how important faculty are. I wouldn't be as educated as I am today if a faculty here hadn't said I could go get a master's. I was a first gen. I didn't even know what a master's degree was. So I agree with you. It's a troubling time. And I hope that we can get to a resolution. And I hope we can move on. But I hope we don't forget. So thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name is Natalie, and I really enjoy going to the group fitness classes at the PEEF because I'm a freshman here. I'm trying to make new friends, find a sense of belonging. When I go, the past few times I go in the evenings, it has been only me and the fitness instructor. And the reason that this is because living in the dorms, you do not want to leave the parking lot past noon because you will not be able to find a spot when you return. As a woman, when I come back from working out, I should not have to park down the road when I am paying, I think it's $140 for a parking pass. I should not be walking alone in nighttime at the dark. If we really care about relationships, we need to make sure that we have good parking. Second off, why on earth is the conversation focused on investing in our buildings rather than our faculty first and foremost? And not just that, but for our students. Faculty working conditions are student learning conditions. I tried had tried to see a counselor here a bit over a month ago, and I was met with a phone call, would you like to join the wait list? The wait list, if you don't know, they're not allowed to give you a specific amount of time that you might be waiting.
24/7.
It's been a long time, and I finally am starting to get into that process now.
Well, I'm sorry, I want to interrupt you because we have 24/7 hour counseling available.
Right, we
So-
do, but to actually get into in-person sessions, yes, there are 2 available appointments per day, but to actually go through the process to better yourself long-term, there's a long wait list. And even if you go on Psychology Today and you look into like BetterHelp or a psychologist in
Then
the
we're going to
area,
look into it. You're right. No,
there's
absolutely.
a huge shortage.
Okay. Raise your hand if you have.
My situation
Good
is
to know.
not unique.
Thank you.
So my question is, what are we doing to bring staff, particularly in the psychology department, what are we doing to bring them here? Because what if I was in a crisis, right?
I'm going to let Chris answer that.
That wait time was
but
not okay, regardless of if there is
mind?
emergency appointments, because there is a lot of, you don't really want to go through with that. So why is the conversation on buildings rather than investing in our faculty, AKA psychological help here, And why do we care more about bringing students in with the new buildings than keeping faculty here to actually benefit the lives of those students?
We have a fourth faculty member beginning November 29th. So we just went through that hiring process. So that person, with the addition of that person, our waiting list will go down to 0.
Okay, thank you. That's good to hear.
Yep. Plus, I did want to echo what Carrie said. We have 24/7 counseling, after hours and weekend crisis counseling available through Health Advantage. It's just a phone call away. So, and you speak to a licensed counselor, and after 3 times with that licensed counselor, they will refer you to their staff in the community. So you absolutely can be seen.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Ellie.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name.
I'm Ellie.
Hi, Ellie.
My question is regards to the new buildings and the glass and the school shootings, because I'm from Flint, Michigan, and literally as I went home last weekend, there was a shooting in the mall while I was there. So can you please tell me how you guys putting up glass everywhere is gonna keep us safe? If people are outside walking to class and they go into a building, you're literally an easy target right then and there. So are you guys more concerned about the student and faculty safety or the appearance of a building?
So I have to ask what safety that they have looked at. I taught at Oakland University, so I'm familiar with shootings and some of the things, Grand Rapids too, actually. Jim, are there safety factors that are being looked at? I believe there are, but I don't know the details, so.
There wasn't any mentioned.
Gavin was just asking me the same thing, and the example that I was talking to him about, if you think about Jamrich Hall, and you think about all the classrooms that are in Jamrich, there is glass next to the door, but there's also a thumb term and an automatic lock that allows the classrooms to lock in the event of an emergency. All of the new buildings and faculty offices, they also have that deadbolt, and it allows people to lock the door behind them in case there is an emergency.
Okay, but if I am a student out there studying or walking or running from a shooter and I run into one of those buildings, there is nothing there to protect me. You're going to shoot straight through that glass and then it's over. I seriously don't get where you guys are confused with my question, because I get people can walk into a classroom and lock a door, but what if a person doesn't know what is going on in that situation? What if they have their headphones on? There's so many possibilities, but still, you guys are not considering the safety of all the different possibilities that could happen.
Okay, well, we're getting ready to start working on design on a number of these projects, and I think one of the things we should do is work with Mike Bath and Public Safety.
Exactly,
and,
I
yeah.
was going to say, because I know Mike and Jeff's here, they look at that.
Yep,
so,
right.
Yeah.
So you said there was in Jamrich how there are the wooden walls, but with the new Jacobetti complex, there wouldn't be that. It would just be all glass structures. So I think that's what she was referring to as well. There wouldn't be a place for people to hide. It would all be glass. So we were just talking about the consideration of that as well.
So this is a good time to be talking about it because it's in the design phase. So thank you. Good points. Okay, the three people, and I believe you're next.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, you can bend that down so
Yeah.
we can hear you. Great.
Yeah, so I don't normally speak up at these types of things. Actually, this is kind of, yeah, I'll just speak like this.
No, we need the microphone. I'm old. I don't hear that well anymore.
Okay. Okay.
Good. Thank you.
I guess my concern is this Monday, we didn't even have classes. Everybody was sick, I guess you could say. You know what I'm talking about. Everybody was sick Monday. Yeah. Yeah. They were trying to make a point, and their point is starting to affect the students. What is wrong with this contract? I guess is my question. What's wrong with the contract?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful that we're going to get there in the next couple of weeks. I am. I'm very hopeful.
Well, I pay like 15 grand per semester, so every
Right.
day that I lose is like 175 bucks.
I understand.
Thank you.
One of the problems.
Yes, go ahead.
My statement has something to kind of do with that, but it's more actually just a statement than a question. I've been here since fall 2017, and I cannot count how many times my professors have been there for me both emotionally, academically, and have given me the wisdom to grow up into the woman I am today. These faculty, I remember in March 2020, that fateful Wednesday, when we saw university after university after university after university closing, and the faculty had to scramble to come up with new lesson plans to give us a quality education. And I could not be more blessed and more happy that my professors were there, because so many of us students were crying, we were stressed out, we were having sleepless nights. But you know what? We are students, and we have just the ability to be naive. But the problem is, while we were having our own issues, the professors were having their own. They took pay cuts, they furloughed, they were stumbling over trying to provide quality education online with something that they barely ever did before. So one of the reasons why us students are so frustrated and so angry, they didn't tell us to march. The professors didn't tell us to march at all. It was student organized. We are frustrated because while we were crying and we're having such a terrible time because of COVID, we recognize that our professors were breaking their backs trying to carry us. And that's all I have to say about that.
I agree. Okay.
Hi,
Last
I'm Gary,
question.
and I'll
Hi.
tell you, trustees.
What,
Concerns-
would you please say that again? What did you say? Sorry.
I'll tell you to the trustees.
Okay.
The concern of these students is valid, but what the price tag that you put on the Jacob Eddy Center is going to double, because bulletproof glass is expensive. The other thing is, I heard today that you were moving some monies to go buy a hospital to take care of a green space. I have professors to the left of me, professors to the right of me, that do not have money. Why not take that money that you're going to spend over there and give it to them? I have dealt, coming from the service, with a multi-billion-dollar budget. And I know how to move money. I know how to tell other agencies, I'm sorry, I cannot purchase this because I have another place to put this money. You need to start looking at, and you need to start going in and providing a fair contract to these. I've been on this university, and this is the 4th time I've seen these professors work without a contract.
Okay, well, I do believe we've had transparency here. We haven't gotten all the answers to all the questions, and I honestly don't know about the foundation project. I'm not part of the foundation. It is separate from the university. I know what you heard tonight. But what I will promise you is that we will continue to work on these things. We are working towards giving a fair and equitable contract. I can promise you that. But mostly what I want to say is thank you for coming and thank you for your honesty. And I mean that. And if you know me, I know that you know I mean that. So thank you. Have a good evening.